There we go. Have you guys always been big book collectors?
Very big book collectors all our lives.
Did you guys bond on over that? I know you were young when you started dating, but was that a part of kind of the attraction as both being readers and writers?
Well, we weren't writers until we were in our 50s.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't publish our first book until we were 57. That was 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married. So we were late to coming to publish, but we've been reading since teenage years, and Charlie was an English major.
Mm.
And it's always been an important part of our relationship that we discuss what we're reading.
Uh-huh.
And Charlie's interested in a very wide variety. He didn't do novels so much, but I love reading novels now. And we both are very passionate about personal growth.
Yes. Same. Someone came on my podcast recently and he was saying that rather than couples therapy, couples should get together and they should read books and discuss, what they got from the book. And they should be personal oriented and growth oriented in that way and kind of learn each other's perspectives through book reading.
Great
And
idea.
yeah. Um, what about you guys though? So you guys got married when you were young. And I remember reading in your book that it was different than you expected.
Well,
That's a bit of an understatement.
shocking.
Yeah.
But you stayed with it because, I'm sure as you guys see, there's just it's everywhere that almost people don't believe in marriage anymore and marriage
Mhm.
doesn't work and we shouldn't be with someone for 60 years.
Mm.
All these things. So you guys got married, you realized, okay, this is not what I expected. But so much of what you talk about in your book is sticking with it and the power of sticking with it. And yet
Mm.
I feel like in so much today's culture, it's about, well, we shouldn't have to stick with it. We should be able to
Mm.
move on to the next person. What is your take on that?
Yeah, that's precisely the challenge for people these days. Um, we were both born in the 40s, and so that's a couple of generations ago. And things have changed radically. Um, some in a good way, some in a not so good way. And one of the ways that they have changed is that we live in what many people have characterized as a disposable
Mm,
culture,
mm,
where when we were growing up, if there was a problem with one of the appliances, we would try to fix it or get the repairman in. Cars broke down, you drive it until it's not repairable anymore. That consciousness has kind of been transferred over to relationships now,
mm, mm,
where we see them as, in terms of utilitarian, um, how much value is there in it for me now? And if it no longer is providing me with what I wanted, then, well, you can always get another one.
mhm,
And so, yeah, we emphasize commitment because one of the things that we found is that um, we didn't really begin to benefit the deepest value of relationships until we had hung in there through the places where many people decide to call it quits.
Mhm.
If you can make it through that, then you get to the real value of relationships, which is much more than pleasure.
mm,
You don't have to lose the pleasure, but the pleasure is deeper, and it comes from the quality of um, the connection that the two of you have. So, when you said, well, we got things that we didn't expect, a lot of those things were something that were beyond certainly what I could have imagined as far as what would be gratifying about the relationship, about having somebody with whom I could really, truly be myself. I could put the mask down that, we all wear publicly, and just relax into trusting and knowing that we are accepted for who we are. And there's something that is so incredibly powerful about that once you have it, it's like you're not going anywhere.
I mean, it seems radical.
Yeah,
And,
it
and
is.
I feel like in a way it's not just like, because some people don't have this, is the unconditional, acceptance or love that you get from your family. It's not the same thing as like when I go home and my parents know me. I feel like this is something so beyond that.
Mm-hmm. It is. It is. And so many of us didn't even get that from our parents. Even their love, as much as they did love us, it was conditional for many of us. I'm not saying for all of us. So when you really get this experience of this person loves me for who I am, the way I know that is I've shown them who I am.
Right.
Right.
And they haven't run away. They haven't made me wrong. They have been able to hold me, my warts, my flaws, whatever, and stay connected with me. You can't put a price tag on what that really feels like, what that means. And of course, both people have got to do the work to get up to a place where they can risk being themselves, and that they can accept that other person, even when they do bring their flaws and their warts.
Right. I mean, there's so many different things going on. I mean, at one point, it's like you have to be able to know yourself enough to express it, right?
Yeah.
So there's so
Mm-hmm.
much about expressing yourself. And then on the receiving end, it's also about being able to not be like, well, you changed on me. What is
Yeah.
this? Who is this? I wasn't expecting this. This is who you've been all along,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, that's right. Takes work on both sides of the equation. Yeah. How do you deal with that when this person who has been putting their best foot forward, at some point you begin to see, whoa, there's more here than what meets the eye, what has met the eye.
and you know what's challenging these days is because like going back to the disposable, discardable culture is, I think I've always believed for myself that I show people who I am. And yet I found that in dating, oh my God, I think that I started to be nervous about that actually as I've gotten older. You know, that, yeah, putting your best foot forward. And when more of my tenderness or fragileness was exposed, I did experience that
Yeah.
someone was like, wait, where did the confidence go? I
Mhm.
expected you to be confident all the time. I've
Right.
had guys come on and say, the craziest day of their life in a relationship was when they realized that it was a human in front of them and not a prize. And so when you
Yeah.
experience this shift of, oh my God, and I don't know if you felt like this as a woman, and I'm sure men experience it too. Oh my God, someone suddenly shifted away from me when I became a human in front of them. That as much as we want that, and I believe in being that all the time, that's what love is. I understand it more now, the fear of, oh my God, when I suddenly become a human to someone, will they abandon me? Will they move away from me? Will they reconsider this? And I get it now how that's what makes dating challenging. I was never a dater. I always felt like when in my 20s, me and someone else committed to each other immediately. And, we stayed as long as we did. But I never felt like that there was this tug of war with getting someone to stay and see me. I thought in my 20s that people really accepted me at my weakest when I couldn't accept myself. And in my 30s, what I'm finding it challenging to be accepted when people think I should be maybe more of an adult or more of a fully formed person, or someone without the insecurities. I don't know what you guys might have to say about that, because it does feel challenging now.
It is challenging. And I think that separates the okay relationships from the great ones, is when people are real
Yeah.
and authentic. And nobody's secure all the time, do you know? And it's one of the key teachings when we teach our workshops, when we do counseling with people and in our books, to be willing to be vulnerable, to be willing to be transparent, to be willing to risk exposing the
Mhm.
whole spectrum of who we are. And when we talk with people who are in the dating scene, do you know there are a lot of people in our field who think you should keep your image up for the first several months.
I know.
That's not my point of view.
Yeah.
I think show who you are early on. You're going to vet who's a player, who's going to really be in there playing with you, with getting real.
Yeah.
And that's going to weed out the people who want to have a personal growth oriented relationship that where they're going to be authentic and learn together from the ones who don't want to play.
Love that. I love that. What is it called? Easier said than done, maybe it might sound like, but I think that, be real, be rare, and, weed out the weak, as they say. But
Better
what
to
is,
find out sooner rather than later, though. Really
Yeah.
better to find out early on whether or not this is somebody who can handle you being who you are, rather than finding out after you've had your second kid.
I thought you were gonna say your second kiss. Yeah, your second
No.
kid. I mean,
I mean
exactly.
early on. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Because some
totally.
people don't find out until later. They keep the charade going for a long
For a
time
long
until,
time.
but it's not permanent. You can't do it forever. At some point, it will break down inevitably.
People
When we-
break down inside.
Of
Yeah.
course.
When we teach
Of
our
course.
classes, we sometimes say, and the students get a little freaked out when we say it, you have to risk it all to have it all.
Mm.
You know, that this is a high stakes game. But when you are real, that invites people to be transparent and vulnerable with you. And if they don't want to go there, it is a good idea to find out early on.
Yep.
I even could feel when I was reading almost the discomfort, the vulnerability, and planning to have a conversation with someone. Instead of just being reactive, saying to someone up front, hey, there's something that I want to talk with you about. Could you make yourself available, or when might be a good time? To me, that was an example of, okay, if we're not going to withhold inside and try to placate to how someone else's comfort zone, or talk to our friends about it, or just get over it, or just wait till 2 years or the second baby to finally say what we want to say, which is never a good idea, then we have to be upfront about what's on our mind. And it's not just being reactionary in the moment, it's also taking into account that can people be on board, and let me give them a heads up. And that to me was, oh shit, that seems vulnerable too. Is one, of course, saying what's in our heart, but then two, being vulnerable enough to say, hey, this is actually an important conversation. Would you be willing to go there with me?
Yep.
And those
Right.
kinds of agreements are very powerful. Do you know, when you early on in the relationship, you negotiate for your needs. And if you have a desire from the early part to let your image down, do you
Yeah.
know, go to those scary places. We sometimes refer to that as being on the skinny branches, being out there on the skinny branches, because a lot of people don't think that they could recover well if it doesn't work out.
Mhm.
And you have to really trust yourself,
Yeah.
that you will be kind to yourself, that you won't be blaming and critical of yourself in the process of learning and vetting who's going to be willing to go to those kind of scary, vulnerable, and confrontive places. But I think you're absolutely right about having the conversations up front, that it's respectful to say where you're headed, the vision of the kind of relationship that you want to have, and just put it out there on the table and see, whether whether that looks delicious and appetizing to them or whether they're horrified and want to go running for the hills.
Oh my God, that was a big part of the last person I was really, interested in committing to is he kept on saying, I've never met someone as intentional as you. Just because I wasn't like, do you want to get married to me? But I was like, at some point, I think someone understands with themselves what their intention is for dating you. Someone can say, I want to get married. Okay. Do you want to do that in 5 years with someone? What are you doing right now? I think so often we talk about what we want, which can be so far down the line, but not what we're ready for. I think if we spoke about what we were ready for in the moment, that might really change, the way that we were dating and how someone was understanding why we're here in front of them.
I completely agree with you. And the phrase that you just used a moment ago, I think is key to what we're talking about here, is in the moment.
Mm.
What we're ready for in this moment, literally this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And the focus is so much on the future. That, I mean, we're talking about, this is what, in our thinking and in our communication, well, that's what I want. But are you really ready for it?
Yeah.
Now? Like, what are you experiencing right now? And that's one of the reasons that we, in our clinical work and in our teaching, we always bring the practice of mindfulness in it. Because mindfulness, if you are mindful, then you will bring your awareness into what you're experiencing now, which is maybe very different from what your vision is of what you hope to experience later.
Okay, so help me then. Because my life has always been the sorrow of where I am and where I want to be, right? And the gap in between. And so I think that what's happened a lot of the times is the awareness of that. It's been like, okay, well, not having acceptance for where I'm at right now and maybe who I would attract into my life right now, feeling like, okay, maybe that's not who I want in the future, or more like, how do I choose right now someone for me if I'm not where I want to be yet? And I feel like that's what's kind of messing things up. It's like I'm thinking about who I want to be in the future, so I can't really date someone now. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. And I think if we wait until we're more evolved,
Yeah.
that it might be a long time. So I'm saying they're all lab partners.
Lab partners.
They're all practice buddies. It's all stepping stone relationships.
Okay.
So do the best that we can in this moment of now with this particular person and hold out the vision of where we would like to go together with each other's support, perhaps one day. And in the meantime, I'm bringing my mixed bag self to this event, and you're a mixed bag too. And we'll try to be accepting of each other's flaws and idiosyncrasies and weak suits and revel in our signature strengths. And aren't we all such a mixed bag? And if we can see that each relationship is to practice, that we hopefully are getting better and better as we go, I think it gives us a little bit more peace of mind that we don't have to have it all together. And this doesn't have to be the perfect partner, lifetime partner.
Right.
Just a practice buddy. And to make a real agreement out of that with the person that you're dating at the time. Are you willing to practice with me? I'm learning communication skills. I'm learning negotiation skills. I'm learning conflict management skills. You want to play? And we'll learn this together. And maybe the relationship will be lasting and wonderful and we wouldn't want to leave it. And maybe we'll at some point decide that we're not a good match. Nobody's bad and wrong here, no blame. Some people don't find out that they're not a good match for a while. But in the meanwhile, while we're in discovery, let's practice with each other.
Discovery. I like that. I like that. Discovery dating. Now, have you helped people in terms of breakups?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we don't see our work as being to make sure that we do everything we can to keep relationships together. we're not so naive as to think that some relationships really can be unworkable because of, extreme personality differences or other factors. So our job is not to, keep couples together no matter what.
Right.
It's to help them to see what it is that is really right and appropriate for them personally and for the relationship. One of the questions that we get so often is, why is it that relationships can be so difficult? Why are they so hard? Why does it require so much work? That doesn't make any sense. Here we are, love is such an important thing. Love is what brings us together. Love is what has us create, sustain the species,
Yeah.
why is it so difficult? And, to me, the answer is very obvious. It's because relationships require two seemingly contradictory things simultaneously of each person. One is to take care of each other and the relationship, and to support and be committed to fulfilling the requirements of a healthy relationship. The other one is to make your own needs as important, if not more important, than anything else.
Your own needs, like my
Your
yeah.
personal needs. Like we've got to, it's not, well, who comes first, me or the relationship? And the answer is yes.
It's quite a balancing act.
You've got to be able to honor your own truth with integrity, and at the same time, not to violate the needs of the relationship. The relationship is like a third organism in this situation. There's you, there's me, and then there's this organism, or what Linda refers to as the baby in the family. And that sometimes gets neglected because we can both get caught up in other things, or sometimes more often what happens is that one person is more comfortable putting themselves first. And in an extreme case, that can become narcissistic, but that person is predisposed to really look at things in terms of what's in it for me here. I want to take care of myself. They don't have any problem, giving themselves self-care. And then they not infrequently can attract a person like Linda, who is very relationship oriented, and that person's downside might be that they can be neglectful of their own personal needs.
But you taught me a lot about that.
So is that like the people pleaser, maybe?
Yeah, that's an example of it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's an example of it.
So of self-sacrificing, like
Yeah. But it's not. I'm just a martyr, and I'm sacrificing out of a habit. It's more about, I am sacrificing, but I see that as a means to what I really want, which is to have a very solid relation connection here. The problem is, though, that if I'm so obsessed with making sure that she's happy or he's happy and the relationship is thriving, that I neglect some of my own personal needs or deny them, then it's not going to work.
Either one of the poles.
Either extreme is
Either one of the poles will take the relationship down. Because if you're too self-sacrificing, you're going to be burning in resentment, and you're going to say, I don't need this. I'm out of this relationship.
Or you're going to stay in it way too long.
And suffer. If you're not generous of spirit and you're too on the selfish, self-serving end, do you know that that's not going to work in the relationship either? So it's that balance point, the sweet spot in the middle. Do you know, where you take good care of yourself and you take good care of the relationship, and you take good care of yourself and you take good care of the relationship? But if it comes to the point where you know that the relationship is not a good one for you, you were talking about breakup.
Yeah.
And most people don't break up very well. Do you know, they take parting shots when they leave. They blame the other person. They're not responsible about
How do
the
you think
way
I
they-
get my clients? Because they're reeling from guilt after having an attack lodged on them. That's so many of
Yeah.
my
Oh, yeah.
clients come
It's
from.
Yeah.
it takes months to recover. Sometimes people are reticent to even dare to get in relationship again when they've had a harsh breakup. It's very important never to ghost when you leave.
That's the
Just
biggest thing that
disappear.
happens these days, though.
It happens a lot. It happens that people text or they leave a voicemail or they send an email. They don't even face the person and
They
look them
don't.
in the eyes and mention the good times and that it's not working for me. And it's so important to stay on the responsible side of the spectrum, not to blame the other person, not to call attention to their flaws, and
Yes.
take parting shots when you leave. No drive-by shootings. Do you know
Right.
that you do it responsibly, both so you can feel good about yourself if you're the one who thinks it's time to exit, and also if you're the person who is being left, so that person doesn't feel so rejected that they're a second, that they're somehow defective and that they're bad and wrong. So it's an art form to leave a relationship when that time comes, but to do it with kindness.
Yeah, and I even saw recently is that I kind of like step back and I go, oh my God, what's become of me? Has like the breakup coach just become so quick to cut things off? And I didn't like that. I didn't like how maybe I begun to act like I feel like people have been treating me, right? And I don't want to normalize that, like you're saying, the ghosting and not really being showing appreciation when you leave and being tender and clear. And so I think that there's also, you can always circle back. If you didn't end it well before, you can always reach back out and clarify and give kindness. And that was a big thing that I decided to do. I decided, to circle back to someone and check back in and to say, hey, I don't think I left correctly. And I want to say something about that, and to not have too much pride for that. Or, on the other end is that some people are like, well, we were just dating, so you don't want to come across as too serious. It's okay to care, you know? So I think that's another part of it too.
Mm. Yeah, it is okay to care. In fact, we can't help but care because it's who we are.
I say
It's hard.
above all, one must care.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The problem is that caring makes one very vulnerable. When I allow myself to feel that I do care, even though intellectually my brain might be telling me, well, this is not such a big deal, get over it. You haven't really been involved with that person all
Yeah.
that long, and all this other mind chatter.
Yeah.
The reality is that when you have a hope or a desire
Right.
for something, and when there or an attraction, we can't help but have a preference that this is something that can turn into something bigger than what it is right now. We can't help it. It's an automatic thing. And it makes us feel very vulnerable, because when you feel the caring, you also become aware of the anxiety about not getting what you hope to get. Also, your caring, when you put it out to the other person, can feel like a threat to them, because what they're experiencing, that is going to activate or have them reflect on their own feelings, which they may not be comfortable acknowledging. Yeah, I really do want this. It's really easy to underestimate how much resistance and fear we have about going into the experience of vulnerability in our lives.
Wow.
That's one of the biggest factors that creates arguments. Arguments are about denying and defending against the feeling of vulnerability. But we turn it into hostility. We turn it into guilt. We turn it into all kinds of other things, because vulnerability is very scary.
We're reluctant to admit to how frightened we can feel and how hurt and disappointed we can feel
Yes,
and
yes,
how lonely we can feel in the
yes,
relationship because there isn't enough connecting going on.
yes.
And a lot of people leave a relationship when the infatuation stage
Yeah.
starts to fade,
Yep.
and Prince Charming and Princess Charming are no longer in relationship with each other. The real people are starting to be viewed. And that's when I think it gets really interesting, because that's when mature love and caring can take place.
Right.
But people get scared of the differences that they start to notice. Do you know? He's not such an angel. In fact, sometimes he looks like a demon to me. And he's thinking the same thing about the woman in the pair. Or if it's the same gender pair, the same thing goes on. And when they start to see that they're not who they thought they were, and they see the differences, maybe values differences, style differences, that can really scare them. What we try to emphasize in our book is it's the interesting part of that person that draws us to them because they are so different from us. They have different strengths and they have different weaknesses and they have a different history and they have maybe different life goals. But we are not drawn to somebody who's just like us. That would be boring. There's a very deep natural knowing in us that brings us to another person because that drive for mastery in us wants to learn from them and from the differences.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you need to learn how to handle it because it's pretty hot material.
Right. I mean, what I'm thinking is, one, it all sounds like very enriching. All the differences and the complexities lead to a more enriching life. I do think that someone can say, no, 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 I am looking for someone that's like me. And I think that can happen when we feel like we are less of ourselves right now. So if someone comes into our lives that's more like us or how we want to be, then we become that. We'll become like them.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I think that ultimately, yeah, we don't want the exact same person, or we would just do life alone, right? If we wanted the same person in our lives, we would just do life alone. And yet, I feel like though maybe it could feel threatening, it would be so refreshing. And I feel like you guys are, behind this is if someone were to come to you and say, hey, I notice that you're different in this way, or this is something comes up that I realize you get a little bit like this, or you get a little bit angry here, or something. Like if someone could call out and give this feedback, if they could observe you to your face, rather than hold it in and make these, start calculating what they're seeing and noticing, but never let you know. It's like what I see in breakups is that people wait so long to tell someone what they've been observing about them and how it makes them feel. It's like, oh my God, if only I had known that you heard me say this and you started perceiving that I was this way or I held this belief. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, often, I think people wait until they've already made the
Yeah, decision. You hear
the
this all the
relationship.
time.
They've waited too long because at that point it feels safer. Well, I've already decided
Yeah.
that this isn't going to happen, so I might as well tell you the truth
Yeah.
about why I'm feeling the way I am. Because prior to that point, we're still trying to win this person over.
Yes.
You don't want to say anything that could disturb them or could upset them. So, we're very careful about what we reveal. But so many people, I'm sure you've encountered this in your work, they make the decision prior to the time that they announce it, sometimes weeks or
Oh,
months.
I always say this, and then they check out.
Exactly.
And then they
Exactly.
wait for the checking out for someone to observe it and become so frustrated with it that they choose to break up with them.
Yeah, they set it up so that, it can't work.
Yeah.
Basically, once they do that, then they're going to act accordingly. They're going to withdraw from the relationship emotionally to some degree, and the other person is going to inevitably conclude, well, I mean, I guess there really isn't much point in this thing going on.
And you know, some of those couples that broke up, they didn't need to break up.
No, they didn't.
Wow.
They had terrific potential. They
Wow.
could have been, you know, wonderful partners, but they weren't risking being honest with each other.
Right.
And you use the word feedback.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are reluctant to give feedback because they're not very artful about the way they do it. They
Mm.
end up being critical and accusatory and blamey. Do you know? And they get pushed back when they're critical and blamey. When you give feedback, if you do it well, we have a whole chapter in
You
arguing
do.
on feedback. And to do it well, you're just talking about yourself.
Yeah.
You're just talking about your own impression, your own reactivity, your own feelings. Do you know? You're really speaking about what you're experiencing. Much less emphasis on what they're doing and not doing and saying and not saying. It's a responsible form of communication.
Right.
When people learn how to give proper feedback, they don't have a mountain of incompletions that are mounting up over the days, weeks, and months. They're staying current and they don't let things accumulate that end up ruining the relationship and causing the breakup.
I have to ask, so, you know, you guys are amazing. So happy to have a couple on and to be listening to you side by side. I think in
Thanks.
someone's head, if they're not, you know, if they never met two people like you, they could think, oh, this all sounds very academic, coming together and working like this and knowing ourselves. Tell me how it's led to a more passionate love. Because on my end, observing it and knowing that someone gets you and they can talk about it and they think about these things, that excites me. That makes me like want to have more sensuality with someone and more intimacy. It's not that it dries it up and makes it academic and work. I would think it would make it deeper and more passionate. Does it?
Absolutely. You can't have passion without authenticity. Otherwise, if there's no authenticity, then you're both just bringing your public images into the relationship. So there's no possibility of deep connection because this other person, what I know for sure is that they don't know me.
Wow.
All they know is the mask, the social mask. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. We live in a society that has certain standards and values and expectations. So we have to be able to present ourselves in ways that will be seen as acceptable. But that can be taken, we can take that mandate so seriously that we forget that that's not who we are. And we just kind of keep that mask on 24/7.
Mm.
And that insulates us from the possibility of having deep, meaningful connection. Because if I don't risk exposing who's underneath that mask to my partner, then no matter how much approval I get from them, I will never get loving acceptance.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see you. I'm glad that you're willing to risk being real with me, and you have been doing it for decades.
Yeah.
And that's why I think our relationship has so much juice.
Yes.
When we teach our classes, we call it going for the gold.
I love that.
Because, you know, there are people in our field, counselors and even workshop teachers, who say you really have to be realistic. You have to ratchet down your expectations. Don't set yourself up for disappointment by reaching so high.
Yeah.
And we don't say that. We say, hold a grand vision. Do you know, hold the grandest vision you can imagine? If you're willing to roll up your sleeves and get to work and be responsible about developing the skills, conflict management skills, negotiation skills, repair skills when there's a breakdown. And if you're willing to develop the qualities in yourself to be eligible for a stellar relationship, for some people that's patience, for some people that's honesty, for some people that's courage. Do you know, being willing to let go and not carry grudges? For some people, that's just commitment to keep hanging in there when you feel like you want to throw in the towel. But if people are willing to take on the responsibility of learning the skills, practicing the skills, getting artful in the skills, and developing the qualities, developing into our own wholeness, and bringing that to the relationship, man, that is a dynamic, contract to make. We are going to grow together.
Yeah.
We are going to learn from each
A
other.
divine contract. It feels
It
divine.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Divine contract.
It's a spiritual process.
And
Yeah.
not
It really is.
only do you have the emotional intimacy and the sexual, sensual intimacy that you long for, but the research is coming in so plentifully now that people live longer, less cancer, less heart disease, less hospitalizations,
Less
they
depression
have
and
to be
anxiety.
hospitalized
Yeah.
that their shorter amount of time, less medication. So not only is it the emotional well-being, but the physical well-being and longevity to go with it. I think it's the love cocktail. All
Oh my
those
God.
oxytocin running through our bloodstream.
Well, I just have to say that, I really am such an example, unfortunately, of the physical element of love. And, when I have deprived myself of, I think, having difficult conversations or been in relationships that didn't feel right, my body was always an indication of that. I've been someone that has lost tremendous amounts of weight in relationships. When I was in my 20s, my body always showed those things. And I think about what a beautiful thing it would be, obviously with myself and being on good terms with myself to have, to not have an emaciated body, but also, in a partnership, what it would feel like to have that love and nourishment and, to just take care of myself and for that to show in a physical way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. Uh, when one of you guys comes home, this is just a silly question I've ever asked, but I'm curious. You know how people get so inside of their own schedules and their own minds. So one of you guys comes home, how do you guys greet the other person?
Well, why don't you talk about reentry? This is a great.
Okay.
You use the example of how
So
what we did.
when I've been out doing errands,
Uh-huh.
getting grocery shop, going to the post office, the bank, whatever, I yell. He's usually in his office upstairs, say, "Honey, I'm home." And we have a little tradition, it's a little ritual. And he yells, "Hooray."
Oh, I love that. Wow.
It's just welcoming. Do you know? Because when we've been in different worlds, like our work day, or we've been on a trip, for business or pleasure, and we have reentry,
Uh-huh.
we need to be careful because we've been in different worlds. We've been influenced by different people and ideas. And we had to learn the hard way because we had some harsh reentries when Charlie was a corporate man and he would come home. We would have been in such discrepant worlds, it was hard to get back together with
Yes.
each other. So we had to learn to stop everything else in our life and make the moment count when we come back together, that we welcome each other. I'm so happy to see you. I'm so glad you're home. I really
Mindful
value our
cherishing it.
friendship. Yes, cherish each other. And, Charlie's quite introverted, so he would sometimes need to have some alone time. And I became the guardian of his solitude so he could get his alone time because he's such a happy camper after he's had his alone time. And I'm a big time connector. So he just give me a little, a little affection and a little hug and kiss. And then I can let go and let him have his alone time. And then we have our reentry that really matters. Do you know, where we talk about what happened when we
What
were
are dinners
apart?
like? What are your dinners like?
Yeah, we sometimes share what we're reading, what we're thinking of, what we're visioning, what we're planning over our meals. Could be breakfast, could be lunch, could be dinner, could
Is
be
it important to you guys to have to eat together when you can?
Yeah, we don't eat every meal together because we have different timetables.
There you go.
But yeah, when our kids were smaller, we had all of our meals together,
Mhm.
and we now have, many of them we share together, but because we have our own separate schedules, sometimes, and Linda likes to eat earlier.
Is
So
that great though that you didn't force each other to be on
no,
the same schedule?
no.
But we
Yeah.
do have connection time every day.
Yeah.
And we usually do it first thing in the morning. Do you know, we check in with self and other every day. So for us, it's not mealtime. For other couples, it's mealtime. A lot of people we work with, when we encourage them to have check-ins, they do walks and talks when they walk the dog. Do you
Hmm.
know, it can be at the end of the day when you come home from work or over mealtime, but we do it first thing in the morning.
Every day.
And we don't miss. And most of the couples that we work with, this is like revolutionary thought to them, even to do it once a week. We don't invite people who haven't been checking in with each other to go to every day right away. We invite them to commit to just doing at least once a week, have a meaningful connection with each other. And if they find it satisfying and they get some of the incompletions handled and some of the unfinished business handled and have some appreciation and gratitude with each other, hooray, I'm glad you're in my life. Do you know, it has a life of its own. Then they want to increase the amount of time that they connect with each other. They're not living as psychic strangers anymore in two different worlds.
Mm.
They're overlapping their lives by having a meaningful conversation about what they feel. Do you
Yeah.
know, what they need?
Yeah. I coined the word break upward, like the direction. I'm curious what it might mean to both of you. Break upward.
Yeah, I never heard that term before. When you said it, the accent is on the second syllable. And so that's what I was associating with, was how a breakup is usually associated with a breakdown. In other words, that our quality of experience is going to be diminished. It's going to go down if there's a breakup. But it's possible, what I associated that with when I heard you say that was that, well, you can have a breakup that can actually elevate you to a higher level of awareness and maybe even prompt you to step into some new possibilities.
And I think what you may be referring to, we just have a little different language for it. We say the breakdown can lead to a breakthrough rather than a breakup.
Yeah.
If we really use that crappy stuff as compost to grow from, do you know, and thrive and bloom. But I think that's the kind of idea that you have, is that you use it as an up level.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Catapulting you. This has been so nice. Tell everyone where they can find you, and how could people work with you? Is it just in person?
Well, we do a lot of Zoom.
Good.
So people can be anywhere in the world and all over the country. So people can find us.
Yeah.
Linda@bloomwork.com is my email, Charlie@bloomwork.com. Our website is bloomwork.com. And we're easy to get in touch with, really, if you can just remember Bloomwork or Linda Bloom or Charlie Bloom. And we teach workshops on the East Coast, do you know, in Massachusetts at Cropalo, and also in Big Sur, California at Esalen Institute.
Oh, really? That is
Been there
so
for
great.
years. Yeah. So, and there's all kinds of free things on our website. So the giveaway, there are over 600 blogs. So
Wow.
there's a connection to our blog site on Psychology Today, where we've had over 10 million hits.
What?
10 million.
Whoa.
And all of our 5 books are on our website, and there are 3 free ebooks, and there's a YouTube channel with over 100 videos. So people can learn a lot just from our website. But I always think that if people get the books and really study them, there's so much that they can learn from the book. They may not need to do counseling or a workshop with us. They may be able to get the nuggets of practical wisdom out of the book.
And they are nuggets, you know, it's also like you could take just a few chapters a day, and there are other people's stories too. So there's real examples, you know, so it's, again, it's not just like this academic literature, it's digestible work. So anyone can read it.
Mm. Yeah, that's how we see it.
We write them to be reader friendly.
Yes.
So they're little short chapters, and you can just pick the ones that interest you. You don't have to even read the whole book.
One of the things that that a lot of our clients have told us is that they will read a story together, or one of them will read the story out loud, and they're short. They're only a couple of pages long, and then afterwards they'll talk about it. You know, they'll tell each other what came up for them, and hearing what their thoughts are about it, and that in itself can be a really great way for people to get a sense of where each other is, how they respond to some of the messages in the stories.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a great activity for couples to do.
By the way, Linda, I was wearing your sweater yesterday. I almost wore it today, but I was like, oh, I did wear it yesterday. We would have been matching. Oh my God, is that funny? Also, what a great last name to have with doing this work together, Bloom. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other day somebody thought that, oh, I must have chosen that last name because of the work that we do. No.
Well, it was chosen for you.
I guess it was.
We just taught last weekend, and there were people there who their friends had referred them, who had done the workshop previously with us. And they were so touched by the work that they did with us that they named their new baby boy Bloom
Oh my
as a
God.
first name.
Which
That was so
Yeah,
touched by
that's
that.
a little too far.
great. Wow, that's incredible. You guys are living the dream. Wow, talk about influence. That's huge though. Like what a compliment. What an amazing
Honor.
mark and honor, like yeah, an honor to have in this life. Wow.
Yeah, well, what we want people to understand is that we have experience. We're experiencing something that has exceeded what either one of us ever hoped for. And Linda's a visionary. She can see things that I can't see, and that many people can't see. But what we have now has exceeded even her
Even mine.
greatest hopes. And for me, it's like, well, this is like fantasy
Wow.
that I couldn't even imagine. And we want people to understand that we're no different from anybody else. We didn't have easy beginnings. We've come a long way. We didn't just luck out in this thing. And if we can do it, they can do it too.
Yeah. And we got really good help, particularly when we were in trouble, from counselors, from authors, and from workshop leaders and spiritual teachers. And so I feel a responsibility to pay it forward. So we want to do that for the couples who are just learning, because we got extraordinarily wonderful help, and we paid attention, and we were good students, and we learned, and we used it.
Wow, and you kept doing it. Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't like one and done.
Yeah.
It's lifetime work.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for this. I really enjoyed you both. I really enjoyed you both.
Now, thank you for the great questions.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you for
Appreciate
sending me
it.
the book, and thank you for letting me reschedule. What was the school in Massachusetts? I want to make sure I heard it right.
Palu. It's in the Berkshire Mountains up in
Wow.
Lenox, Mass.
It's a learning institute. The name for it is the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health.
Yes.
Cool place.
Yeah, it's in Western Mass, and yeah, we've been teaching there for about almost 20 years, and we've been teaching at Esalen since 1995. Our last course we did last weekend was at Esalen.
Wow. And how long do you stay in Big Sur for?
It's a weekend workshop. Occasionally we do a 5-day.
That's
Yes.
so cool. I love that. Wow. You guys really are living the dream.
Come to
Congratulations.
class.
Yeah, seriously. I have a twin sister, and we're now going to Arizona for the second time. We've been doing work together in classes, so who knows? Um, you know, maybe we'll see you there sometime. All right. Well,
Right.
thank you. Have a great weekend, and I will
Thank
be in touch soon. And congratulations on your latest book.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.